On this week's roundup, Bayern and Bayer live up to the hype. Do we have a Prem title race? United are in absolute shambles. Barca find their stride, and one team forgot to show up in the Milan derby. Plus, a European Nights preview. All that and more. Full-time roundup starts right now. And welcome into this week's Full-Time Roundup. I'm Matt Gesslin. As always, I'm joined by my good friend Daniel Brackett. Daniel, what a weekend of football we had for us. I hope you had a good one. I know that you were enjoying yourself out on the boat on the lake, but also were able to get a chance to catch up on some of the action that was fast, full, and constant this weekend.
Yeah, no, Matt, I enjoyed my weekend. Shout out to the family for kind of letting me do beelines from the lake back upstairs to watch a couple games and back down. So that's always good to spend time with loved ones and especially get to watch a fantastic weekend of football.
Well, as always on the show, we start off with what are we wearing. So if you want to give the people what you are wearing today, I do have a kit on under my hoodie. It is hoodie season, folks. I do have a hoodie on, but there is a kit underneath it that I will explain.
So I am rocking the Liverpool. I think it was the third kit a year ago. It's the tan one, has the dark green collar. I'm a sucker for kits with a collar on it. I think it's just such a classic look. On the back, Mohamed Salah, the Egyptian king, kind of had to carried us through the season. Probably my favorite kit in that I have, but wanted to let's see what you're wearing.
Well, you guys have some very interesting third kits. I'm just going to point out between this year's, that one, which is a good one. I do like it, but you guys just have a weird way of third kits. This is just a simple away kit for us this year. I wore it this morning for the game, but of course, like I said, hoodie season, it is cold, so I'm covered up, but I did get it in time without the sponsor. I was talking with a buddy of mine. We actually think just straight no sponsors on kits is the way to go for fans to buy. If you want a sponsored kit on the field, go at it. But for a purchase, we thought it would be cooler to own a kit that has no sponsors on it. And so I'm happy that right now Chelsea has no sponsor on the front on any of our kits this year. That will change, but take advantage of it, or at least I did with this kit. So I'm excited about that.
Absolutely. I like your take there. We're so accustomed to it when a kid doesn't have a sponsor. It kind of looks like almost naked in a way. So if you have a good kit and it doesn't really need a logo, then by all means, rock it.
Yeah, and it puts more pressure on actually having a good kit on top of that too. But we digress as much as we could love talking about kits. Before we get into the weekly review, just a quick reminder to follow us on our new Twitter X handle. We actually did go ahead and create that. So that is Full-Time Roundup. Again, Full-Time Roundup on Twitter. So go ahead and follow us over there. Download and subscribe, as well as give us a 5-star rating whenever you listen to the pod on whatever platform that you listen to us on. So again, just wanted to get that out of the way. As we dive into games here in England, Daniel, a couple really big, massive fixtures that lived up to the hype. First one that we want to cover is Manchester United versus Brighton. What can we say? I mean, there's so much to go in on both sides of the coin. I want to go the positive first with Brighton. They were just absolutely, again, flawless out on the pitch. The Zerbi ball is pretty scary to watch right now.
Yeah, you got that right. And when I was thinking Brighton could get a result here, and then I saw the starting 11 had some rotation in the lineup, and I was like, I don't know, this could be a little closer than I'm giving United credit for. And because there's no Ferguson, no Estupinian, no João Pedro, and Solly March also was not in. So giving some youngsters the nod, and it paid off.
Yeah, and again, you mentioned it. None of those players that played, that's arguably, 4 better players than some of the positions that Manchester United were playing with their starters. So it was a clear just domination. Like I mentioned, just the way that De Zerbi's setting his teams up with the small, short passing and the way that they constantly are attacking you. United was set up in a diamond, which the way that Brighton can ping the ball around and change fields quickly is how you break a diamond down. And you saw that countless times. You saw Matoma and, Lamptey with his speed going up against Delo single-handedly, 2-on-1s, overlaps all day long. That system that Ten Hag wanted to implement just didn't work. And it really put a lot of emphasis and pressure on United's back line. And really this defensive unit is really not capable of keeping up with the speed and the skill of what Brighton presented. I mean, Eric Lindelof in the middle is a huge drop off from Rafael Varane. It's just that is what it is, but you're not going to put Harry Maguire in there, so you got to play him. Martinez, who's been pretty solid, but there are, some instances where you've seen him not necessarily being the most, I would say, consistent defender, and that showed as well. And then I already mentioned, Matoma just going after Delo, and just not a good look right now. And I think United, not only were they, we talked about it earlier in a couple episodes, bad in the midfield, but now they're also bad in defense. And it's kind of like, which area does Eric Ten Hag solve first? And it's going to be a tough challenge right now.
Yeah, it's all falling apart right now for Ten Hag and Manchester United. There's just so much trouble on the pitch, and when you kind of combine it with what's happening off the pitch, it makes it almost even worse. And you did mention Lamptey, and he was a standout player 2 seasons ago. Didn't really get much run-in last year, and it's really good to see him kind of back to his best because he is such a talented player when he is confident. And I'm hoping I can get to see more of him running down that right flank ASAP.
Yeah, he had an injury that took him out. And like you said, just the rotation and how Brighton were set up last year didn't allow him to get in, but he has that speed. He's definitely a little bit smaller for a fullback, but boy, what he lacks in size, he makes up for in skill. Of course, a former Chelsea player that we let go. We can, just add that to the list as well. Moving up front, though, of course, Marcus Rashford, you expect him to kind of be leading the offensive front. You mentioned Rasmus Højlund finally getting a start today. Just not Rashford's day. One of those things, you just kind of call it and look at it and say, this is not going to end well. He hits a ball, gets deflected, goes right into the corner of the net where the goalpost and the crossbar meet, and deflects out for a corner rather than going in. Another play where he actually has an assist on the ball that goes in the back of the net, and the ball is out of bounds by about a millimeter. So, that was just kind of the day. It's to your point, adding to the problems. And I think that's part of just, if you're a big believer in karma, things come in waves, right? So not only is United having problems on the pitch, but they are having them off the pitch. It's starting to take an impact, fans booing all around the stadium after the match. And Daniel, they go into a really difficult situation here going into the Allianz Stadium this week. This could be pretty ugly for United this week.
Yeah, losing to Brighton at the weekend's bad. Getting drubbed by Bayern midweek after that is even worse. So can Ten Hag not lose the locker room if it goes badly this week? The board or the owners need to sell. They should have sold years ago. They need a coach to come in to kind of fix all these issues, and it's not just Ten Hag. It's from the top down here. And Ten Hag has shown that he's not pragmatic with players. So this could get ugly real fast.
So do you think that Ten Hag is the manager by winter time, by winter break, or is that something that's really up to the table? I mean, from my perspective, look, I have friends that are United fans that are trying to say, give it time. You're looking at a regression from last season at this point, right? He had a whole season to kind of get the system in place. It takes time, but he has a full off season, and you'd expect your team to progress. And actually this year, they're in worse place than they were last year under Ten Hag. So is he the guy going forward for United?
It's hard to say. There's just so much moving pieces. It's a very complicated matter at United. I think that if the board would sell, they should just clean slate. But the boards or the owners, the Glazers aren't going to sell until probably end of next year, maybe another year after that. So it's really hard to tell. If Ten Hag can just kind of fix the locker room a little bit, I think they have a chance. But if they're going to give him time, I don't if he needs to get some performances in
Yeah,
before we
performances
kind of
win,
talk
and
on that.
that's really, how you end these conversations, right? It's performances on the field. One of the teams that is getting performances on the field and an absolute complete end of the spectrum from this situation at United is Spurs. Talk about getting a manager that comes in and gives you not only that manager bounce, but a style of play that the team really gravitates towards. So, they escape. They get 2 goals late and 5 minutes apart in stoppage time. But Daniel, that's just a reflection, I think, of what Ange brings to the squad and what he's going to set up and how the team's going to play for him. And that, like I said, it just looked like it throughout the rest of the day, coming back and never giving up. 2 goals late, currently second place with 13 points, 11 goals. If you told me Spurs would have 11 goals after 5 games, I'd probably think you're a little crazy from previous years, but they're playing a much more aggressive style and really, really showing. And now is a really big test, right? North London derby away against Liverpool, against Arsenal, excuse me, and then away against Liverpool.
Yeah, I mean, it was 0-0 for a while. Sheffield kind of got a later goal in the second half, and it kind of looked over. They were finally going to drop points here, and then Richarlison with some heroics here, and over international break, you could see that Richarlison was just having a bad performance after bad performance for Brazil. Kind of gotten taken off, was crying, was talking about seeking mental help, like just kind of talking with a therapist, try to work through his rut he's going through, maybe on the field and off the field. And I'm not a big fan of Richarlison, never have been, especially because he was an Everton guy. But I was actually really happy for him to see that he kind of got a goal and assist late, and I think that's going to really turn his Spurs career around.
Yeah, and you love to see that. As mental health is such a big issue nowadays, you never want to see someone really go through that, especially like you mentioned. You may like the guy, you may not like him on the field, but you never want to see someone going through something like that. So great to see him bounce back. His manager made some statements on his behalf and kind of really supported him. You can see that they're all playing for Big Ange as well. Not to take away from what Richarlison's courage and strength to do that was, but clearly has the support in the locker room from his teammates, his manager, and you love to see that. You mentioned Sheffield United. They can't close out games. This is going to be a problem for a team that just got promoted and is looking to stay up. They had the lead against Everton. They dropped points last week, which gave Everton their only points of the season. And then you lose 3 points here. It would have been a tough one to, even if you get a point, but being up late, like I said, 2 late goals that give Spurs the win. When you're at the bottom, you need that. And looking at Sheffield's fixture list coming up, it's not going to be easy. You kind of wonder where's their win coming from. They have Newcastle next, then West Ham, Fulham, which is a tricky game, even though you're both kind of in that same space. Manchester United, could that be a win for you? And then Arsenal. So a really tough time for Sheffield right now, as that's usually the case for a lot of these promotion teams. But you would love to see them kind of get off the board, get a win, and kind of stay up and give it a little bit of fight. No one wants to see them go down too easily.
Yeah, they did show some fight at least, and that can be said more than Luton Town. They probably will be packing their bags at the end of the season, but it's still good to see they gave City a good fight. They gave Tottenham a good fight. So at least they're showing that they can be somewhat competitive. Now,
Yeah.
oh, you got
No,
it.
go ahead.
Now the pivot into the game, I woke up early for this one, a nice 7:30 kickoff. Klopp was kind of complaining about the early kickoff. That's neither here nor there. Just with our South American talent, just long travel back to England, and our record at the Molyneux and on early kickoffs is pretty abysmal. I was actually closer the game got out, I got a little bit more worried. And then when you go down kind of really early against to Pedro Neto, who was just honestly unplayable, I was pretty worried. The first half was really, 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 really bad. The midfield was awful. McAllister had his probably worst game in a Liverpool shirt. Curtis Jones was invisible, and even Szoboszlai was honestly trying to probably overcompensate for his other midfield compatriots and was giving the ball away a little bit. But credit to Klopp, he subbed in, hooked McAllister, made the perfect substitutions at the perfect time, and Liverpool scored 3 goals unanswered. Mo Salah had a vintage Mo Salah performance, even though he was not on the score sheet. He's been coming up in a big way with assists, which is good to see. And is he kind of switching his game more with this new Liverpool side? It seems like it is. And we just showed the constant mentality of you never stop fighting, you go again, and the chances will come. And shout out Robertson. He rarely scores, but he scores big ones when he does.
Yeah, that was a big one. You saw him just make that run all the way up the pitch, get that ball back from Salah, and just tuck it away nicely for the tying goal. And then, really just had a great performance all around. You mentioned the early kick, of course, Liverpool having not won in their last 6 matches that were at 12:30, I believe, something like that. So really nice to get that off your guys' back. Give me a break about the timings, Jurgen Klopp. Everyone's got to deal with all that. Everyone had team, and there was a game on Friday for a lot of bigger stakes than this. Now, you mentioned, we talked about a little bit earlier, that they didn't really have as many internationals that were in South America for that game, but still, everyone's traveling. No one's home comfortably like you would be normally in a training week. So I hear him on that, but give me a break. Let's move on from that. Next time, just get the boys ready. And like you said, massive adjustments in the second half that really changed the entire complexion of the game. But you could definitely see a lot of legginess, a lot of tired legs, and that it definitely showed. But again, 3 points for you guys. Moving on, a big 3-1 win at Molineux is not easy, regardless. And Wolves came out firing. I mean, that first 20 minutes of the game, they were just all over you guys. But you found a way, and that's what good teams do. And up to second place, or basically set just a non-goal differential for second place in the league. So a great place to be right now at this point.
And real quick, I do want to give Wolves their flowers. I mean, with the manager leaving, and they just sold their best player in Mateus Nunes to City. The signings that they have signed to replace Nunes, I mean, that midfield looked really good against us. Obviously, they were overcome in the second half, but I still was very impressed with how Wolves showed out. Pedro Neto will not be a Wolves player for long, and I think if they keep up those performances, they should just survive relegation, in my opinion.
Yeah, Wolves have been 1-9 away from being a very good football squad, and that showed again. They still can't score. Another team that can't score, of course, is my beloved Chelsea. 0-0 today at Bournemouth. What can I say at this point? This is Bournemouth. This was a game that we should have won. I'm starting to get a little bit suspect, though. Again, last week was Forest, and we lost at home. So, what is the squad at this point is to be determined. I think there's a lot of folks jumping out of the ship right now, and the sky is ending, the sky is falling. We have 5 points in 5 games. But again, I said this last week, not good enough. Just, it is what it is. If we can't beat these teams, like, who are we going to end up beating? Because we're not going to be able to compete against a City. City's going to lap us around the field. I know we drew against you guys first game of the season, but a lot has changed there. Chelsea, Liverpool 0-0 seemingly every single time out right now. It's an unbelievable streak of that. So who are we going to beat? I mean, if we can't beat Forest and we can't beat Bournemouth, are we fighting with Luton and Everton and Sheffields? And how? Okay, cool, great. That's where we are. So it's a lot of concerning time. I mean, we're lack of scoring or having a goal scorer is a real problem. It's becoming an issue 5 games in. So could Christopher Nkunku be the answer? We hope he is. I mean, he's a little ways out, though, with his injury and his recovery. First half of this game was better for us. There was some more runs being played. Nicholas Jackson holding up the play. He's still really raw. I think people are just kind of in over their skis about how good he is and what he's going to do. He was never supposed to be the number one. I think Nkunku is going to start and give Jackson time to learn and develop, and we're throwing him right in. He's super raw, and he's going to be a good player, but right now he's just not good enough. Again, better in the first half, moving the ball, darting runs in behind the back line a little bit. Again, dominated possession in this game, 65% or more in all of the games that we've played, but that doesn't equate to a win. And so we just need to kind of find that offensive, creative mentality of moving forward and making darting runs. You saw Kluivert come on the pitch for Bournemouth and was the most dangerous player on the entire pitch, going at players, taking the ball on one-on-one. None of our guys did that in 90 minutes, and he came on and did that for 20 minutes. So just something that we need to look at and see. The youngsters were good. You know, they're coming in and they're arguably a B squad right now, to be fair. I mean, we're missing a lot of key players that would start on this roster. That's just is what it is, but everyone has injuries and we can't make excuses. But Gusto played well. Of course, he'll be replaced with Reece James in the future. I think Colwell will have to move in the middle eventually. Ben Chilwell out on that left-hand flank is going to be more important for us going forward than having Colwell play out there just to play. I think Thiago Silva, maybe it's time. And of course, there's Fofana injured and Badiashile injured. So the list goes on and on. But all in all, Chelsea are in the right direction. I think that there's some progress that's there, but ultimately they have to start getting results, and they have to start getting results soon.
Good point for Bournemouth too. They needed that. So
great point for Bournemouth. Yes.
As you guys needed 3, they needed 1 pretty bad. So would you say it was a fair result?
I mean, of course, yes, that's where my standards and my squad are. Is it's a fair result to get a draw at Bournemouth, but yeah, that's what it was, and it was a fair result. Both teams had chances. You know, our keeper had to make Sanchez had to make a couple of huge saves, as well as their keeper had to make a couple of big saves for them. Raheem Sterling missed a free kick that almost was in that same spot as Rashford's that I mentioned earlier, hitting the corner and coming in the net but not going in. So yeah, I think a fair result, but again, they have to start putting the ball in the net and seeing it go in consistently.
Absolutely. And kind of pivoting to another game, City versus West Ham. West Ham came out firing, scored the first goal, and kind of like Liverpool, City scored 3 goals unanswered. They just, they reloaded their squad, keep winning, even if they concede a goal, the heads don't drop, and they kind of just show that mentality, that treble mentality that they had last year. I thought Jeremy Doku off the bench or starting today was phenomenal, or I guess yesterday was phenomenal. So I mean, Holland could have had 3 goals easily as well. So I thought West Ham, the scoreline doesn't reflect the performance. I thought West Ham looked really, really, really good, but City is just a juggernaut, and there's not really much you can do.
No, not really. Another 3-1 game was Aston Villa versus Crystal Palace. Palace going up first, 3 unanswered from Villa, 2 of which coming late in stoppage time after 14 minutes of stoppage time in that game. So again, Aston Villa still maintaining, still rolling and kind of quietly in that top half. Where they'll end up, nobody knows. We'll find out later in the season. Fulham take a 1-0 win over Luton. You mentioned Luton can probably pack their bags already. I think that it's safe to say that squad, although it's a great story that they've made it up to the Premier League, will probably not be staying up this season. So take Kenilworth Road while it lasts and enjoy that small venue and when they do host a home game. Another boring 1-0 game, Daniel, was Newcastle versus Brentford. Thankfully, Callum Wilson puts in a penalty, and Newcastle needed this one, but that was not really that enjoyable to watch.
It wasn't. It was an interesting matchup, though. Brentford have kind of showed their strength early this year. So if they nicked points off of Newcastle, that would have been trouble for Eddie Howe. So good to see that Newcastle was able to kind of calm the ship here and get 3 points. But it was a boring game. But I think even though Newcastle won the game, I think Brentford, especially missing their talisman, I think they're a very strong side, and they're gonna be a comfortable upper table, mid upper table at the end of the season.
Yeah, and of course Newcastle has a Champions League game on Tuesday, so they rested a few of their starters for this one and still get the job done. The game on Sunday, which was the headlining game, was Everton-Arsenal. Daniel, Arsenal get it done. Tough game. Sean Dyche packed the box as you would expect him to, trying to get a 1-0 win or just kind of a counter-attacking goal to steal points here. Low block. Arsenal find a way, like I said, 1-0 off a fantastic goal. That's really well worked with Trossard finishing it off with a gorgeous left-footed hit to the far post.
That goal was absurd. Just having the ball run across your body and kind of open up your hips to not only get power on it, but to steer it almost on an outside swerve to the back post. I don't think he gets enough credit for that goal. And there was reports coming out of the Arsenal camp that Trossard was not happy with the playing time, and Mikel said, "Listen, you'll get your chance. We have European football. Don't worry." And the manager called his name, and he answered. And with Martinelli, I don't know the extent of that injury, but he should get some run-in within the next few weeks and kind of fight for his place there.
Yeah, a couple other adjustments real quick that you mentioned. Trossard coming in for the injured Martinelli. Of course, the headline was that David Raya started in goal over Ramsdale, and Kai Havertz got pulled for Fabio Vieira, which we both
Thank
were
God.
speaking of for a lot. Now, as boring as this game was, there was a pretty large matchup in Bundesliga on Friday that, Daniel, I don't know about you. I was hyped going into this game. You've been talking up Bayer Leverkusen all season. Bayern, of course, being Bayern. This game lived up to the hype. 2-2 match that probably could have been easily been 4-4, Daniel. Initial thoughts and what was your takeaway from this game?
I was super excited to see this game. I have, like you said, been hyping up Leverkusen to kind of challenge Bayern to win the Bundesliga title, and they kind of got off to a rough start. Bayern Munich were controlling the game. Leverkusen were struggling to build up play and to get out of their own half, and Harry Kane scores, and Leverkusen kind of have to turn up the intensity. After, I would say, around 25 minutes, Leverkusen started to get some run into the match. That free kick from Grimaldo, I literally yelled from my couch. I could not believe how good that free kick was. And then if you counted it, there was a 4-4 or 2-2 game, but 3 goals were off set pieces: a corner for Bayern, a PK for Palacios, and then a free kick from Grimaldo. So set pieces seemed to be the difference. This game could have easily been 4-4. Boniface had a couple chances that he missed, and Bayern with Gnabry and Sané had both some really good opportunities to score, but I think that was a pretty fair result for both teams.
Yeah, and they mentioned it on the broadcast a couple of times of just how that was a fair result. You mentioned both teams could have had gone up and been in the lead, and thinking of Florian Wirtz hitting the post as well in a couple opportunities, and just a game that could have gone either way. And I think a late penalty, that does kind of get a little bit soft, but that is a penalty. Why is Alphonso Davies going through the back of that player right there? Unfortunately, caused his team 2 points, but a fair result. You mentioned the subs and Palacios coming in and scoring that penalty. Xavi making some big changes and really changing the game. I love the way he manages and kind of just how his teams play for him. And the way that they kind of take that and embrace his culture and how he's played over his time. So it was a pretty wide open game. You heard that a lot of the managers say it was too open. Even Xavi said it, even though it was fun for the neutral. This game, ultimately, from a coach's standpoint, was a nightmare. Even Thomas Tuchel mentioned it in his post-game press conference. So, Daniel, we've talked about it a little bit on the pod in the previous episodes. Is Bayern okay defensively enough to win the title in the Bundesliga, or from what you've seen with both not only Leverkusen but RB Leipzig right behind, can that trip them up for the title this season?
I think their center back situation's fine. You got De Ligt, you got Min-jae and Kim, you got Upamecano. I'm not really worried about their back line. The right back is a question. We saw that Leimer, a center mid, got the nod in for the right back over Mazzarri. So it's going to be interesting to see who starts week in, week out. Guerrero is injured at the moment, but will he fight Davies for a spot? Because Davies is fantastic going forward, can be suspect defending wise, like a lot of attacking fullbacks. So it's going to be really interesting. I also want to mention the goalkeepers did steal the show. There was some phenomenal saves from both Ulreich and Herdecki. So I did want to mention that. And I also want to mention that Boniface, he's under 23. He did miss some chances, but he's a big guy, and he had this one run where he dribbled 3 or 4 Bayern defenders, and there's really nothing you could do when a guy is just bodying you, but also has the delicacy to kind of tiptoe his way through the back line. I just think he's such a good player, and I would love to see him score a goal. So it could have been more of a Kane Boniface show off for this game. I didn't get what I wanted, but it's okay. And to kind of pivot, RB Leipzig, Augsburg, 3-0 in the 25th minute. It was already 3-0. Very comfortable win, especially with European football midweek. They got to rest some guys late. But did you have any takeaways from this game?
No, I mean, Simmons or Simons, however you want to pronounce it, is of course another just great performance from the youngster. Again, I think he's starting to kind of assert himself as one of the main features of the Bundesliga this year going forward. There's so many great youngsters in that league. If we've already mentioned two of them with Victor Boniface and Florian Wirtz, and of course now Xavi. And we didn't even get to Musiala, who's arguably maybe the best one of them all. Just how much depth is in this league. And you mentioned, Danny Almo out and still getting the win there. So I think RB Leipzig was my pick going into the season. I still stand by it. I think you touched on it a little bit with the defense for Bayern, but I think there's going to be some issues. Thomas Tuchel doesn't quite know who his starting defensive line is going. He doesn't really like Delit. And so I think that, the way that RB Leipzig go forward, and what they have around them, I think they give Bayern a test long term. Augsburg was not really much of a test, and so this storyline will keep going until the big three. We'll just call them that as Bayern, RB, and Bayer. I would have put Borussia Dortmund in there, although even though they won 4-2 over Freiburg, I was not impressed with that performance. So for me, yes, it's a win, a red card that completely impacts that game. It does not give me much confidence in Borussia Dortmund being in that conversation. So, that's my takeaway from RB. And it'll be interesting to see kind of where they lead at this point into the season.
And you mentioned Borussia Dortmund. On paper, it was convincing when it wasn't really convincing. If you actually watched the match, Mats Hummels had two good goals. Good to see the veteran step up when the team really needed it. And Daniel Malin continues to shine. He kind of ended the last season pretty hot and has kind of picked up that form this season. We've been talking a lot about the Jude hole, and it was good to see Emre Can and Felix Nemecha step up. Even Sabitzer looked good today. So a lot of positives for Dortmund. They needed a win really bad as they do play PSG midweek. So if they are going to PSG with a no more than 3 points, I'd be worried for them. But maybe this big win kind of gets them into the right direction.
Yeah, you mentioned the big 3 points. That's all you have to look at it, and that's the way you take it. A few things that are still kind of going to be for me to look out for, like I mentioned just a minute ago. I don't see them in the race, but things that could change it that we'll keep an eye out for. Gio Reyna's presence, he was a difference maker for them last year. Where is he, and when is he going to be back in the lineup? They're still allowing too many chances in the back. So if they can get Schlotterbeck or Schula to get going again there, that could tighten things up. But for me, right now, a distant fourth, maybe fifth in the Bundesliga. You have Hoffenheim, who's currently fifth after a win against Cologne. Are they this year's Berlin, who finished fourth last season? They play each other next week. Any thoughts on Hoffenheim or just kind of what they've done at this point? They were pretty much at the bottom of the table last year. No one really talked about them, and now all of a sudden fifth. Is this just a flash in the pan, or are they potentially for real?
It's good to see, especially when a team is almost relegated. We can say kind of the same about Stuttgart. They did the relegation playoff and just survived. And Stuttgart and Hoffenheim have been one of the two teams that have looked really good this year. Will John Brooks ever get a look in, being fifth place in the Bundesliga, starting center back for Hoffenheim? That's a pretty big question here. I didn't watch enough of Hoffenheim to have a take here, but it is good to see, and I'm glad you noted that they kind of started the year hot.
Yeah, and you never know what happens. Of course, it's still early in the Bundesliga, week 4, as they started a week before everybody else, or week after everybody else. But fifth place for now could be interesting to see. You mentioned Stuttgart; they get a hat trick from Gazeri and kind of keep the ball rolling in their up and down goal scoring type of season that we've talked about a few times now. So 3 on the board for them after a couple 5 spots. All those guys do is seem to score goals over there. Mainz at the bottom of the table after that result. Difficult. You kind of expect Mainz to be mid-table or at least stay up. And so hopefully they kind of get things turned around. Additionally, Wolfsburg take down Union Berlin in a 2-1 win. Berlin, man, that's, they're kind of, is the moment over? You hope not. But that was a tough one for them, and hopefully they can kind of maintain and turn it around, especially with European football on the docket as well. It's going to be a lot for them to handle and manage at this point in the season.
Absolutely. Just a little worried for Berlin. I think they'll finish mid-table comfortably, but when it comes to having to do performances on the weekend and midweek, they're going to struggle, which gives a team like Stuttgart, Hoffenheim, even Wolfsburg a kind of shout to kind of challenge for that top 4, top 5. Wolfsburg, Niko Kovac is their coach, who was the ex-Bayern coach. They got a lot of young talent there with Jonas Wim and Patrick Wimmer, and the other brother, Nemecha. So I actually kind of like Wolfsburg this year to kind of maybe take that next step. They haven't been really good since Kevin De Bruyne left a while ago. And they're a pretty historic club when it comes to the Bundesliga. So they've had some fantastic talent through the year. So I'd like to see Wolfsburg kind of step it up and keep this momentum rolling.
Yeah, currently in 6th place, one spot ahead of Borussia Dortmund. So again, to your point, going to be a good battle for fourth spot in the Bundesliga. A team that we've talked about before, Frankfurt selling Koulibaly. Would that have impacted their chance to get in the top 4? They get a draw, 1-1 draw against Bochum, who have been a surprise, to be honest. They were one of the bottom dwellers last season all year. Get a nice draw. They're up to 13th in the league, so a good start for them. Heidenheim, who surprised Borussia Dortmund last week and got a draw there, go to home to Werder Bremen and get a 4-2 win there. Unbelievable that they've been all the way up to 11th as a promoted team. So unbelievable start for them. And then Darmstadt against Mönchengladbach, a crazy game in this one today. Darmstadt was up 3-0, and Gladbach comes back and scores 3 in the second half to get a draw. So as it has been the case all across the season in the Bundesliga, Daniel, just goals everywhere, something that we really enjoy. And the goals didn't stop. If we switch over to Spain and La Liga, Barcelona putting up a 5 spot against Betis on Saturday afternoon. Boy, that firepower is getting nice and revved up, and Louis gets his first goal, and everyone feels pretty comfortable and happy over in the Camp Nou or their new stadium that they're playing in.
And that Louis first goal, I mean, Felix is not going to get an assist for that, but that dummy that he did completely opened up Lewandowski to score that goal. João Felix just slotting in on the left side has looked, or his first game looked great, and Ferran Torres continues to pick up that form. He was, for some reason, I couldn't understand why he wasn't getting chances early on, and he just keeps scoring goals for Barcelona and Spain. So he talks about his mentality and the never give up, and I've been really pulling for Ferran Torres. So I'm happy for him. And I just wanted to we're talking about, I mean, we both predicted them to be top 2, top 3. Barcelona kind of has a super team right now, and with João Cancelo also got on the score sheets of those new transfers, well, with the instant impact. And I was kind of thinking in my head, all right, what is the business that they've done? And they have every position that they've lost, they've upgraded. So you lose Busquets, you lose Nico Gonzalez, you bring Oriol Romeu in, you bring Gundogan, you lose Fati, but you bring in João Felix. They just they're making good business, and for the last 4 years, Barca has done really bad business. So it's good to see that Joan Laporte has kind of gotten Barca back on track, and they're almost at the status that they once were with a Lionel Messi.
You also left out one key component of that transition, I think, is the youth movement as well. It does kind of help that you have a once in a generational player that that I love and rave about, and Yamin Lamal, and then of course Alessandro Balde, as well as being 19. So just the sheer youth and talent that's on that roster. You mentioned, are they a super team? We will only know this season if they do well in European football. Daniel, last
Very
season
true.
was, this was kind of the same hype and built up, and of course they end up winning La Liga. Not foreign to them, but it's been a while. And so that was the first step. And now they had poor performances in the Champions League, get knocked out of the Europa League by Manchester United. European football for Xavi Hernandez and this squad is going to be what determines if they're a super squad. If they have the talent, they have the pieces for long term. If you're asking me this season, it's still too early for me to tell. Only time will tell, and we'll see starting this week. Not too long now.
Absolutely. And we didn't even mention Gavi and Pedri wasn't even playing today, which is kind of the engine of this team. So that's why I'm kind of so high on Barca right now. And they do have to win the big games, though. I do agree. And we've given credit to Betis of being a good side, but they kind of just rolled over today. And
they rolled over them. Completely rolled
over.
Now what is success for you for Barcelona this year? Since what would be successful season and quantify either a super team or on their way to being a super team?
I think I do like the on their way to be a super team, especially with the youth. You got to give them some time, but winning 2 La Ligas in a row, that's the first step. Getting out of the group, going somewhat far, I would say quarters to semis would be a good start for Champions League, and then at least competing in the Copa del Rey would be competing in all 3 trophies to some extent would be a big start. And as we talk about Barca, you can't not talk about Madrid here. They continue to roll. They went down early against Sociedad, who's been phenomenal to start the year off. They showed character. Joselu stepped up. Jude continues just to be the key, and they're kind of winning games with their diamond midfield that they're starting. But the question is, how is Ancelotti going to rotate, and who, when he rotates, is going to be the shoe-in week in, week out?
Yeah, you mentioned the character this team is showing. They've gone down, I think it's 3 or 4 times now in the first 15 minutes of a game and come back to win. So, like you said, just the true character of a champion. This is one of the best teams in Europe year in, year out, no matter how fluctuated or strong the roster is. The expectation at Real Madrid, as is with Barcelona, is to win. And they've continued to do that. They're perfect on the season. 5 played, 5 wins, remain at the top of the table. For me, to your point, there are still questions. What is that best midfield combination? We saw Tchouaméni play in there today and looked a little lost with his partner of Toni Kroos. They didn't really have that symmetry or that synergy together of kind of playing off one another. Where does Camavinga play? Ideally for me, I think him and Tchouaméni together is the way to go. But of course, we saw him play at left back last season. Fran Garcia came in and from Rayo Vallecano and has done a good job there. So do you need him on the left, or is he going to be able to play more central? And then ultimately, one of the biggest questions coming into this season was how are they going to replace Karim Benzema? Is Vinny, Rodrigo, and Joselu enough? Of course, Joselu gets a goal to get today. It kind of alleviates some of those questions for now. But ultimately, those are 3 very, very big questions for me when it comes to Real Madrid. And Real Sociedad gave him a game for 45 minutes. And really, if it wasn't for Kepa, that game could have been 2-0 very easily. Kepa made, even on the goal, he had a double save. So there was some holes and credit to Ancelotti for some adjustments at halftime. And they, like you said, they just, character bounce back and 2-1 win, a big 2-1 win. Something that, the team that I had predicted to win La Liga could have used a little bounce back. Atleti get blown out by Valencia on the road. Valencia go up and take an early 1-0 lead in the 5th minute and don't look back. Daniel, what is, where did that come from?
Yeah, Valencia were really, really bad. Almost got relegated last year. Did not see this result coming. Atletico have started off. You were especially high on them. I was too, though. I won't throw you under the bus completely for this one.
Well, they were my pick to win the league. So I mean, this is a huge setback for them. I mean, we'll see, but
it's not too late to change your pick, Matt. You can come join the
No.
Barca stand.
I'm not rash. I'm not going to make a rash choice here. I'm all the way. I'm going to see it through. I'm going to see it.
That's fair. That's fair. So just hitting on the docket of any other big results. Athletic Club win easily against Cadiz. The Williams brothers continue just to be crucial for that team. Villarreal get a big 93rd minute winner against Almeria. The Yellow Submarine keeps chugging along here, and Sevilla finally get on the board here. Thank goodness, because I was getting a little worried for them.
Me too. Yeah, and that's a big one. Sevilla again. They still will be European monsters in Champions League after winning the Europa League again for the 7th time last year. But to your point, they get a big win finally on the board. Getafe and so I always get this one. I can never get it right.
Osasuna.
Thank you very much. I'm just going to leave that to you going forward. Maybe the game of the week in the league, just a 3-2 back and forth game. Getafe gets a late winner. Just everything that's going on there with Mason Greenwood joining that squad, and I think starting, if I saw it correctly. And so just another crazy back and forth game. Always one that kind of stands out to you in La Liga. Just seems like there's always some craziness that goes on in that league week in, week out.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's see here. So, and your Girona is still yet to play. We've reached on or touched on them briefly of how they've started off hot. They play tomorrow against Granada, so it's going to be interesting to see how that game goes, just table wise. Now, so we can kind of pivot over. This is going to hurt me a little bit, but the Milan derby. Let's talk this out now. Inter absolutely put a 5-burger on Milan or AC Milan. Didn't see that one coming. Did you?
I did not. The 2 undefeated teams going into this one. I'm going to be honest with you, Daniel. I didn't get a chance to watch this because for some reason, CBS Sports decided that this game, the biggest game of the league for this season, should be on Paramount Plus instead of Liberty Football. And yes, that is my rant about streaming networks and all of the various bullshit that they do to make us watch the greatest game on planet Earth. Why could this game have not been on CBS Sports is beyond me, but that's neither here nor there. I apologize. That's just something I had to get off my chest. Yes, this was an absolute drubbing. One team just did not even show up. I don't quite understand what happened here from an AC Milan's perspective. Rafael Leao gets a consolation goal just to kind of pad the stats, but ultimately Inter Milan just dominated this one from start to finish. Mkhitaryan gets, a goal, 2 goals and an assist. Lautaro Martinez also delivers 2 assists in this game. Just complete domination from start to finish. And you kind of wonder what's going to happen from an impact of a game like this. Of course, inner stadium rivals. Does this put, and of course, Inter just beat AC Milan in the Champions League semifinal as well. Daniel, is this kind of going to be a thing now between these two that Inter has AC Milan's number?
We'll see. If I'm AC Milan, I'm going to go ahead and bury that tape. Not even going to go over it. Just going to bury it, make some changes midweek, and hopefully get a result in the Champions League. Pulisic getting hooked after 55 minutes is not ideal, but you can't put a stellar performance every single week. And I mean, with the Liberty Football, I guess that was the Holy Spirit talking to save you from having to watch that drubbing. I know I have Paramount, and I wish Liberty was on instead of watching AC Milan get killed. Now, kind of pivoting over to other title contenders, Napoli versus Genoa. They dropped points here. A little hangover, as you like to say, Matt, for Napoli this season. Osimhen and Kvaratskhelia are struggling, and they seem like they're missing Min-Jae Kim back and in the defense.
Yeah, you mentioned, the hangover and just the drop off from the players, and of course Kim going to Bayern Munich. It's kind of expected a little bit. This team hadn't won the league, and I think since Maradona in over 30 years, if I remember correctly, or maybe a little bit longer. So, you kind of. And of course, everything that happened with the manager leaving and basically right at the beginning of the season. So yeah, to be expected. I don't think that they drop off completely. I don't think they win the league again. It's not going to be surprising to anybody based on the start. I think they fight for top 4. We mentioned them earlier on. You had them in your top four. I think I had Atalanta, who lost and dropped points this weekend. So that could be, an opportunity for them to kind of keep pace even as they figure their shit out. But ultimately, I think they'll still be fighting for top four. But a really disappointing start that they had. A team that on the flip side, Juventus, who've continued a strong start. They get a 3-1 win over Lazio. Lazio, who's really doing some difficult things for that squad there, really not playing up to snuff and what they expect. You mentioned in texting me during the weekend that, Dusan Vlahovic is playing out of his mind right now, and a player that I'd love to have on Chelsea. Even that was the late rumor, but what are your thoughts on Juventus? I know you weren't that high on them when we were doing our predictions last week.
I wasn't high on them just because I just cannot stand Allegri ball. I probably let my bias kind of seep into that, but it's working. Allegri ball is working so far, and you mentioned Dusan Vlahovic is back to his best. I'll tell you who else is back to his best. Federico Chiesa. He's looked fantastic. No Paul, no problem here for Juve. McKinney continued his hot form from the U.S. Into this game with a beautiful assist to Dusan Vlahovic, and kind of created the first goal for Vlahovic as well. So Lazio, I expected them to put up a better fight. They do have some good players here, but Juventus, if they can just keep rolling here, they can definitely challenge for that top three, even challenge for the whole title itself. Now I wanted to pivot over. You mentioned Atalanta because you had them in the top four. An absolute goal thriller. 3, Fiorentina, Atalanta 2. It was a great game. I don't know if you got to catch this one, but both sides very attacking sides, kind of like almost like an end-to-end, kind of like the Bayern game. And I think both of these squads can challenge 100% for the top 4 spot if they can continue the form with the European football.
Yeah, you mentioned their style of play. Watching Fiorentina last year in the Conference League, I think it was, and they just had a fun style of play. Ultimately, getting knocked out in the final or before the final, but just a fun way of watching games. And Atalanta, same thing in the Champions League. They're very forward thinking. So hearing the game was back and forth, and just end to end is not surprising at all. In the final, like I mentioned, for Fiorentina. So, their style, they're getting up there. They're starting to become stronger. They had a good player, like you mentioned, in Vlahovic, that they got a lot of good money for and made that into a good investment that they've continued. And both squads that'll be fighting for that 4th spot, in my opinion. I think Fiorentina a little bit behind Atalanta, of course, contrary to what the result is here, but on the road. So, you take that for Atalanta's perspective as well. So yeah, I mean, I think they'll both be fighting for that 4th spot. Another team that we all thought was going to be fighting for that 4th spot, look like they're kind of finding their way right now, is Roma. A huge win today against Empoli. 7 spot, Daniel. You don't hear a touchdown on the board very often. Mourinho ball does not allow for 7 usually. Dybala had a brace. Lukaku scores. Any thoughts on just this match or how Roma looked, other than obviously the scoreline? Do you take any stock in this match, given it was that one-sided?
Empoli are very bad. Number one. Number two, Mourinho probably walked into the locker room after they're all probably celebrating, and was probably like, guys, what the fuck? I wanted to win 1-0 and park the bus for the rest of the match. So I'm sure Mourinho had something to say about scoring 7. But Dybala back in the lineup, had a brace. Good to see. Paulo is kind of back to form, and Lukaku, instant impact from that transfer this summer. I think that they are going to kind of turn it around here. Well, I hope at least. They have a good team. So Cristante looked really good. Pellegrini, as always, is playing well. They did lose not 1 but 2 center backs this offseason to the Saudi and Co. So if they can kind of clean up that back line, I don't think it's too late for Roma to kind of challenge for top 5 here.
And an item that you would think in Jose Ball is going to be able to clean up that back line, just a way that he's played in the past, and something that a team like PSG, jumping into a couple other European storylines here from the weekend, a team like PSG could have used, losing 3-2 they lost against Nice. Daniel, pretty surprising here. Mbappe, of course, gets a brace, which almost is expected, but were they looking ahead to Champions League this week, or is this kind of what we're going to expect from PSG going forward? It's been pretty up and down all season.
Nice are a good side, so I wouldn't take away too much of this performance. But when you're at home at the Parc des Princes, you think they get a win. They got a lot of injuries right now, so not making excuses, but especially with the squad that they have, they should be able to win most. And I mean, it's a shame because PSG keeps dropping points, and teams like Marseille and Monaco drop points as well. So PSG is going to win the league. I don't know if they'll win it convincingly, but it's a shame that 2, 3, 4 other teams aren't kind of nipping at PSG's heels here and kind of really giving it a go. So that's a shame. And then to kind of rotate to other leagues, PSV, the statement 4-0 win. Pepe fought Chucky Lozano for the penalty. You'll love to see that. And the gaffer backed him after the match saying, yeah, he was right to do that. He takes the penalties. And PSV did lose some talent this offseason, but they kind of just reloaded like they always do. And someone who hasn't reloaded is Ajax. They fell their fall from grace as well as falling to Twente. They're now 11th in the table. The big money sign for Chuba Akpom in the championship hasn't worked out as of now. And I mean, I'm sure they do have some good core players, but it might be time for a new manager, maybe even a new sporting director. And it's a real shame because Ajax, they can't really compete financially. So when they do make a good run in the Champions League, it's always good to see the kind of like a money ball type approach. I also wanted to mention Benfica continued their dazzling form in the Portuguese league, and they look like the shoe-in to win that.
Usually are the case, and they of course are on this first. I believe they're on the first window of Champions League games. I may be wrong on that. They might be week 2, but yeah, they'll also have European football to play. You mentioned PSV. They will have European football to play as well, as they won the Eredivisie last year. You love seeing a little U.S.-Mexico rivalry on a team just who wants to score that goal. So glad Pepe got it, of course, like you mentioned, in the gaffer backing him to take that kick. Ajax, what a story there. I think you mentioned a new manager. They already fired two managers last season already. Really kind of desperate times. Edwin van der Sar leaves the project as well. They lose a player like Mohamed Kudus late in the window. So really tough times over there for Ajax. It will be interesting to see. You mentioned it, and that's such on point, right? Built on youngsters. They have a good team that makes a run, and then it gets raided by all the big clubs. So how long would they be down for it? It will be interesting. But Daniel, we talked about a lot of things here in European football over the last 45 minutes or so. What are your takeaways and takes from this week and going forward? What are some of the storylines that you want to see going forward from here?
We did touch on a lot of our takes kind of in the roundup, but my big one I wanted to say for this: Liverpool can win the league. Genuinely. City kind of they're not the super team that they have been. They do have new talent and new transfers, so there is a possibility that they will drop points at some game or another. Dominic Szoboszlai is looking like the best midfielder Liverpool has had since Stevie G, genuinely, and all 5 of the strikers for Liverpool are kind of all firing now. Every single one has scored a goal so far. So if we can clean up the back line and kind of keep the back line healthy, then I'm pretty bullish on us at least challenging for the title here. How about you, Matt?
You texted me that, and I did laugh a little bit at it, to be honest. But you make a good point. I feel like giving City a 2-point lead advantage, even now with players like De Bruyne out and a couple other players not in the rotation, Foden and Grealish. It's just such a strong roster in City. It's just hard to see anybody kind of challenge them. But we'll see. I mean, you guys do. I think you finished second. I said that last week, but will you guys give them a chance? Give them a run? Man, I hope so. I want to see a 2-team race. I just don't want to hear you complain and be promoting Liverpool all season at such a high level. So we'll see what happens. My take for what I saw this past week, a lot of people are going to shake your heads on this one and mark it down. September 17th. I think Chelsea will finish in the top 6 in the Premier League. I think from what I've seen, I mentioned some of it above. Obviously, there's a lot to kind of get through as far as the squad is concerned, but I like what I'm seeing. I think Mauricio Pochettino is the manager for the job. People calling for his head got to stop. He's been there for a minute. If we're going to start rotating managers in and out, nothing's ever going to get done. I think this is a project for the future. I think there's a lot of young talent on the squad. I think a few pieces that they'll add at the window. I think you're going to see Chelsea go for a player like, hear me out on this, Robert Lewandowski, and pay 50 million pounds to Barcelona, who need the money, bring in a number 9 and kind of, or a player of that caliber, maybe not Robert, but I think that's a good option that they could get for a decent amount of money at the January window. And they'll push. There's no European football. They'll have the league to focus on. And yes, it's tough right now, but there are 38 games in the season. We're at game 5. I like what I've seen, and I think Chelsea will get there. I think Chelsea finished top 6 before it's all said and done.
Oh man, I need what you're smoking, man. They are 5 points behind number 6 West Ham on 10 points, which is not that far. Honestly, it really isn't. But from what I've seen of Chelsea, I think this is a multi-year project. I don't see them putting it together. I think top 10 is more attainable. Maybe slide in at the 8th or 7th, but I see too much talent here with like a West Ham, Brighton, Villa, Newcastle, Brentford challenging. Even United is right next to you in 13th. If they can turn around, it gets pretty packed up at the top, and we'll see. I'm fine saying I'm wrong, but I'm not picking up what you're selling.
Well, we'll see what happens. Again, September 17th. Mark it down. Chelsea finished 6. As we head into break, I know we touched on a lot of the games that are going to be going on Monday as well. Burnley and Forest in the Premier League. Daniel touched on Granada versus Girona in the La Liga. There are also 2 fixtures in Serie A, so there are lots of games still to play for this week. We will focus, though, on European matchups like we mentioned when we come back from the break. So those kick off on Tuesday, and there are who doesn't love a good European night, right, Daniel? So we'll be right back, and after this, we'll be touching in on European football as well as our best 11 and Daniel's best bets. And welcome back. As we mentioned before the break, we are going to be touching on European nights, Daniel. I know for me, this is one of my favorite topics to talk about. Not only are you talking about different styles of football on the field that you don't see very often with the cross mixing of leagues, you also see cultures and fan bases and passions and songs and everything that goes into a game environment just changes during these European nights. That's why people talk about them. They live for them. The home fans are just that much more excited for a Tuesday or Wednesday, or if you're playing Thursday night football match as well. They begin on Tuesday, like I said. Are there any matchups that excite you for this window? Again, there's 2 weeks. So first batch of games will go this week for the groups, and then again next week, the following week, we'll have the remaining groups that did not kick off games. So 2 weeks of European football.
The champions. I love that anthem.
Who doesn't, right?
Classic.
Who doesn't love
with the opening of the Heineken bottle? So we've touched on a few, but Bayern versus Man United should be an interesting one. I'm not feeling too good about United on that one. Milan versus Newcastle, that's going to be really intriguing, especially now considering that Milan just got drubbed on Saturday. Will they bounce back against a stout Newcastle team? And
Tonali goes back to AC Milan too, so
that'll be an interesting storyline.
Yep.
Yeah. And Newcastle haven't been in the Premier or in the Champions League for a very, very long time. So are they kind of going to hear that music that I just sung so eloquently and kind of not play a little nervous, be a little sloppier than usual? And they have to go to the San Siro, a huge venue to go to for the first game. So that's going to be one to watch. We mentioned PSG versus Dortmund. Dortmund finally get points while PSG drop points. Is that going to kind of propel PSG to beat up on Dortmund? We will see. I will say BVB's record in the Champions League is actually better than you would think it would be. Shout out Jack for that little tidbit. So that I wouldn't count Dortmund completely out of that game. But we'll see. I'm kind of scared for Union Berlin though, Matt.
Yeah, that's going to be a tough one, especially at the Bernabeu, which was on display in all of its glory tonight. Finally finished, and boy, is that stadium just an absolute structure. You mentioned a team like Newcastle, who haven't been in the Champions League for a while, going to AC Milan and being a little starstruck. Is Union Berlin going to feel that same way as they step onto that historic venue and in front of 84,000 people, serenading Jude Bellingham again today? That's going to be. It's always a tough matchup when you go play a team of such history in Real Madrid. You guys have your fixture as well on Thursday versus Lask. And then, another one that I'm looking forward to, a couple more that I'm looking forward to, Rangers versus Betis. I mentioned Betis as one of my teams in La Liga, and Rangers, we don't really talk about the Scottish Premier League that often. It's really a two-team, league, and you can get into the debate of where it sits in the power rankings of European football, but they still get to participate in tournaments, and they still get to, show off their best stuff against other opponents. So looking forward to that one. And then for me, the other one that I'm looking forward to, we mentioned their troubles as Ajax, and they get to go and play Marseille. Marseille dropping points recently in the league, like you said. So, those are going to be, for us, the interesting matchups. Like I said, there'll be another round of matches the following week that we'll touch on next week as well. But that's a pretty exciting first batch of European football fixtures, Daniel. I mean, look at the names on this list: Bayern Munich, Manchester United, PSG, Newcastle, Real Madrid, Liverpool, Rangers. I mean, the list goes on and on. I mean, that's just the games that we're picking out. I mean, this is why you want to be part of European nights and European football.
European football is king. I love the league, but I live for that. You get off of work and you get to go watch the Champions League or the Europa League or the Conference League for that matter. So I'm looking forward to it. It's going to hurt watching Champions League knowing Liverpool's not going to be challenging in it, but I'm still excited to watch it. And so are you ready for the best XI of the weekend?
I am definitely ready for the best XI of the weekend. To start us off, Daniel, go ahead. I mean, I picked this one for us. I hope you're okay with this. I mean, this guy just stood out to me and was standing on his head today. I have Kepa in net, 3 major saves to keep Real Madrid in the game. Like I said, also a double save that may or may not be counted for in this for the goal. So Kepa, and you'd love to just see a bounce back story like Kepa's having. So good on him to have such a good performance. And where was it at Chelsea? That's a debatable story. Apparently, you just don't want to play for us anymore, anybody who comes our way. So that's my keeper. Defenders, Daniel, we had some great selections and great options here to choose from this week.
We did, and Kepa has had some big shoes to fill with Courtois being out, so it's good to see, like you said. So defenders, we got 3 of them. Mats Hummels, the veteran, scoring 2 goals, huge goals for Dortmund, 16th consecutive season with a goal too, which is an interesting stat. Thank you for bringing that up, Matt. And Fran Garcia, left back with 2 assists. He's. I mean, when you go to Madrid, you either sink or swim, and he's swam. So that's good to see from a young Spanish left back. And then we have Robertson with 1 goal, major goal for Liverpool. Took that like he was a striker, and maybe Robertson should start up top for Chelsea. I don't know. He could score a few goals for you.
Done more than we've done this year, that's for sure. So
yeah. All jokes aside, 3 really good defenders that really stood out for us. And then would you like to take over the midfield?
Yeah, I would. We mentioned it earlier in the Milan derby. Mkhitaryan just had an absolute game, 2 goals, 1 assist, bossed the game all over the place. The other one that I had, and we mentioned this when we kind of went through our formations and what we were trying to do with the top 11 is, there are games when you look for stats and you look for the players that stood out in that category, but sometimes there's just players that stood out and just owned the game, and you couldn't really take your eye off them. And that's who this player was for me. Take Kubo was just an absolute beast in this game for Real Sociedad. Of course, he did get an assist. Probably should have had another one. Kepa made an unbelievable save off a distribution to a head. Should have been 2 assists. But again, just really, dominated that, was also part of, both Real Madrid and Barcelona's academies, which is pretty rare. So a player that, just kind of stands out and you put him on the list. Like I said, sometimes it doesn't have to be on the score sheet. Cristante, 1 goal, 2 assists in his performance. So you got to get that man on here. And then Bernardo Silva, who sneakily had an unbelievable game for Man City, a goal. Erling Haaland, I'm surprised he didn't tap it in himself to, as a striker, you want to kind of take those, but a great finish by Bernardo Silva and then an assist to Erling Haaland for his goal in the game. So that midfield for us was, you're going to win a lot of games if you play with those 4 in the midfield on top of our 3 at the back. So goals, Daniel, there was a lot to choose from, man. There was multiple goal braces, hat tricks all over the place. Take us through who you thought stood out up top and is going to get you the Champions League title.
Yeah, these players aren't making it easy on us to decide. It's honestly a headache to get this 11 kind of sorted out every week. But first off, leading the line, Kleindienst, striker for Heidenheim, had 2 goals and assists against Werder Bremen. Newly promoted side. Had his trade in the second Bundesliga. Now he's scoring a brace against a decent Bundesliga team. So you love to see people kind of step up to the spotlight and kind of help a below average team kind of punch above their weight. Number 2, you got Girassi, a hat trick hero for Stuttgart. He's been on fire this year, and I believe he's going to continue that form throughout the season. And then third, but not least, Lewandowski, 1 goal, 2 assists. Has kind of struggled this year, but with this new Barca lineup, he is flourishing. I think he's going to really relish his partnership with Ferran Torres and especially João Felix, as João Felix tends to drift in a little bit. Probably give Lewandowski a little bit more space and give the defenders other people to think about here. So that is our XI of the week. Please comment your XI of the week, or if we miss someone or you feel that we missed someone that should be in here, please tweet out at Full-Time Roundup on Twitter. Now we have player of the week. Would you like to say your player of the week, Matt?
The guy, like I said a couple of times now, stood out and just dominated one of the biggest matches in European football this weekend. And Henry Mkhitaryan, again, 2 goals, 1 assist. For me, you do that in the derby against your arch rival. That check mark right there, player of the week for me.
There we go. And then mine is a little biased, and I'm also wearing his jersey. Mohamed Salah, the Egyptian king. Didn't get on the score sheet, but had 2 beautiful assists, and he kind of carried and willed Liverpool to kind of get that result against Wolves. Now, young player of the week, I have Jeremy Doku. Made his first start for City, and he was a absolute problem on that left side. He is just so fast, lightning in a bottle, and had a great assist for the first goal.
So much talent and depth on that wing for City too. I mean, Jack Grealish out there, Phil Foden can play out there. God, that's a scary, proposition for any team. Yeah, I have Xavi Simons. We've talked about him before. I don't believe I've had him as my young player of the week yet, but I've had him on my XI before. Again, goal and assist this week. Kid is just 20 years old, dominating. How can you leave him off? I mean, again, that there's so many options to choose from in the Bundesliga, as there are young players all over the league. And all over Europe, but we're just seeing a resurgence in German Bundesliga young players right now. It's fun to watch, but he stands out or stood out this week for me. Daniel, we always do this after players of the week or XI, and these are your bets. Let me tell you, folks, if you are not listening to this podcast or Daniel's Twitter, you are missing out on pretty awesome picks and a record that is no slouch and stands on its own. Daniel, I don't want to steal the show here. This is your time to shine. Tell the people what you're doing. You're just kind of on a roll right now. And again, I am the cooler. Everyone knows it. So I don't even want to touch these. I don't even want to cue you up on them, because if I spit on it, it'll go sour. So just tell us what we're doing this week so that people can make as much money as you are with gambling on soccer.
Guys, it's been a great start to the campaign here. Soccer's back, and my record just speaks for itself here. I am so incredibly upset that we didn't have the clean sweep this week. Leipzig went up 3-0 in the first 25 minutes and couldn't just get a late garbage time goal to cash that sweep at 3.5. But It's okay. We don't dwell on our losers. We focus on the winners here. So we were 3-1, and the parlay was a cash. I mean, what can you say? We are up now, or I'm up at least 13 units on the year. So if you just to explain units one more time, if you just throw $20 on a game, that's your usual unit. That's how much we up. 20 times 13. I'm gonna let you do the math, but that sounds like a lot of money. So I do have some domestic picks, and just because Champions League is back, I do have some European picks, but I'll start with the domestic. So we're gonna start with the parlay. We're 2 out of 2 with these. So I picked City money line against Forest at home. Barca versus Celta Vigo. I think that Barca is just gonna go on a tear here. Inter versus Empoli, who's been the worst side in Serie A so far. I don't know if you'll love this map, but Villa plus a half. So all they have to do is draw or better against Chelsea. And Liverpool versus West Ham. That is plus 470. So almost 5-1. I'm feeling pretty good about this parlay. And I made it a little juicy with the Villa plus half, but I just don't see Chelsea getting points there. Now, when it comes to best bets, I usually go with overs. Last week we did well. So Leipzig, Mönchengladbach over 3.5. This is a no-brainer. Mönchengladbach scored 4, conceded 4. Or was it 3? Excuse me, conceded 3. Gave up 3. Leipzig are just on a tear. I think they will concede at least 1, making this over 3.5 cash. South London derby, or North London derby, excuse me. Spurs, Arsenal, over 3.5. Both teams play pretty free-flowing football. I don't think this is going to be a cagey affair. I think they're going to really, second place and fourth place kind of going at each other's necks here. So I think there will be goals. And then Leverkusen, over 3.5. This is just a pencil in every single week. They just are so free flowing, and they do love to give up a goal every once in a while. So I like the Leverkusen over 3.5. And last but not least, Monaco, Nice over 3. Monaco put 3 past PSG. Monaco scored 2 today, and they gave up 2. So I think that's a perfect matchup for both of them to get an easy 3 goals over. And for my European picks, I have 3 best bets in a parlay. I'm gonna start with the parlay. I mean, it's been a while for Champions League, but I am feeling really good about these. Parlay is a little bit of an interesting one. We got a 6-legger here. I thought, you know what? The 5 legs have been cashing. Let's try 6 here. And I wanted to get a better odds boost for everybody. So Barca money line. They play an awful team. Bayern play Man U. I'm pretty comfortable betting Bayern here at the Allianz Arena. Leverkusen play a garbage team. Liverpool play a garbage team. Atalanta play a garbage team. And then Brighton play a decent team with Athens. 3-1, almost 3.5-1. Feel pretty good about that. I think that's going to be a no sweat cash. When it comes to best bets, we got Leipzig versus Young Boys over 3. Young Boys is going to try to go at Leipzig, and I think they are going to fail miserably. Next, I got Salzburg over Benfica. This is a very, very intriguing game just on paper, but both teams play very attacking styles of football. I would say Benfica has the edge when it comes to who's going to win, but Salzburg are no slouch with their Wonder Kid 11, and I think over 3 is going to be no sweat. And then we have Liverpool over LASK over 3.5. Liverpool, even if they rest guys, we have a Jota on the bench. We have Darwin on the bench. We are going to absolutely destroy LSAK. Jurgen's going to want to kind of get this group done and dusted with early so we can kind of rest guys later on for the Premier League. So go ahead and take those winners. And I'll be excited to recap talking about another successful week next time.
Well, you heard the man. You heard his success. Again, if you aren't following Daniel on his account, Liverpool CLTFC, for more bets, go do that right now. You can also follow him. We'll post the bets as well on Full-Time Roundup. So please follow both him there and us on the show. We'd love to hear from you guys and interact with you guys. Also, please download and subscribe to the show and leave us a 5-star rating wherever you get your podcasts. But Daniel, what another weekend of football. I don't know about you. I'm going to need to go take a breath because we have to do it all over again this week. But As always, we'll see you guys in the next roundup. Have a great week.